commissioner and didn't make it. My term on the council ends at the end of this month. So it's going to be different to not be on the city council and be involved in these groups and doing all this work. But I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and it's been wonderful to meet you all and get to work with you. And I've just really enjoyed it. And I think we've been very productive. And so thank you all for your patience with me. And as I learned through all this, this delicate information that we have to navigate, but it's been truly been a joy and an honor to serve. So with that, I'm going to dispense with going through around the room and doing all the introductions. Just know that we have a lot of state representatives invited, a lot of state senators invited. We've got representatives from MnDOT. We've got Chair of MnDOT Commissioner Margaret Anderson Kelleher is going to be joining us. We have a lot of people joining us today. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Melissa Madison, our Executive Director for the 494 Corridor Commission and the Commuter Services. And she's going to give a brief presentation on what the 494 Corridor Commission does and what Commuter Services does for our communities. So with that, Melissa, are you ready to take over?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. So Kate on our staff will be advancing the slides, and we can go to the next slide. Thank you. So just a real quick refresher that the 494 Corridor Commission formed in 1986 when our 5 cities decided to formally work together on traffic issues and cut through traffic into the cities, and to also make or lobby for transportation improvements along 494. Next slide, please. And on the 494 corridor, there are 19% of the metro area residents, the metro area population live along the corridor. 21% of the metro area jobs are located on or near the corridor. And a statistic that often surprises people, over 284,000 jobs are on and near the corridor as compared to downtown Minneapolis and downtown St. Paul. Next slide, please. And the Corridor Commission conducted a study of commute behavior on 494 and found 95% drive alone, 4% of the commuters carpool, 1% bicycle or take transit. And the same survey found about 30% of people who work along 494 are open to trying transit, and another 30% are open to carpooling. And so the Corridor Commission hired commuter services staff to then go out and try to reach those people who are open to doing something other than driving alone, so that we can give them resources, help them find one another for carpooling, and try to convert that 30% from driving alone into using an alternative. Next slide, please. And to do this, we work through employers to offer a robust set of resources to commuters to help them make a sustainable commuting choice other than driving alone. So that includes ride matching for carpools and van pools, as well as individualized, customized transit itineraries with information on what bus to take, where to stand to get on the bus, where to make a transfer if they need to. And then we provide the full trip itinerary with the corresponding bus schedules or train schedules, and then 2 free passes so people can try transit before deciding if they want to purchase a Metro Pass or a discounted transit pass. And great resources for bicycle commuting, including customized route planning and bike maps, tips on biking and traffic, and the Minnesota bike laws. And we also promote the Guaranteed Ride Home, which it seems like not very many people know about this amazing resource offered through the Metropolitan Council, which gives people a safety net if they've used an alternative for their commute, they can get up to $100 per year in free taxi ride reimbursements or in Uber and transit rides for the what if type situation comes up. Maybe if their child gets sick when children are allowed to be in school, or if their carpool partner can't take them home. So we heavily promote that. And then we have a great telework guide. Next slide, please. And so we'll just quickly touch on some of the employer services that we offer. We offer preferential carpool parking signs that look exactly like the one you see in the middle with the red outline. So we offer those to any company or organization that will establish a carpool parking program. And then we manage it for companies regardless if they use our signs or not. So on the left, you can see an example of carpool parking that is at Normandale Community College. And they use a combination of our signs, and then they created their own that have their logo at the top. But they have people utilize commuter services to register their carpool. And we have some criteria that people need to meet in order to become a registered carpool and then begin parking in those preferred locations. Next slide, please. One of the greatest used resources that we offer are on-site commuter fares, which we do with usually 130 large to medium-sized employers per year, and also at multi-tenant office buildings. Next slide, please. We also provide employers with a free outdoor bike rack if they don't already have one, or if there are more bicycles overwhelming or more need for more bicycle parking. We also hold how to bike in traffic lunch and learns and bicycle commuting 101, I should say. And then we hold on-site bicycle tune-up events. Next slide, please. We provide displays for employers who will put out bus schedules and how to find a carpool partner, bicycle commuting tips, and then our general free commute resources brochure. And we also encourage companies to utilize one of our free commute resource brochures when they hire employees, so that employees can immediately contact us and find out what their commuting options are. Next slide, please. Also, for employers and multi-tenant office buildings, we write customized newsletter articles, and we keep employers updated on construction projects that impact their location so they can inform their employees. Next slide, please. And so it's very important for us to reach commuters through employers, and it's a successful way to reach commuters. And so the middle picture there is an example of a commuter fare at Normandale Lake Office Park, and the property manager buys bagels and continental breakfast, and then a couple pictures of some of our enthusiastic commuters that have used our services. Next slide, please. Another great way for us to reach people who drive alone are annual Try It campaigns, where you've maybe seen or heard about the Commuter Challenge or Bike to Work Week or Carpool to Work Month. And those are opportunities for people to make a one-time pledge to do something other than driving alone for their commute by the time the campaign ends, in order to be entered into a prize drawing. And so the Try It campaigns are a great way to engage people, because the threshold is just try it one time and you might win a great prize. Next slide, please. And in our toolkit of what we what we offer to employers is a robust set of telework resources, and we'll have a couple slides on that now. Could you advance to the next slide? So telework maintains productivity and business continuity during man-made or natural disasters, weather-related emergencies, large-scale events such as the Super Bowl, or if there would happen to be a terrorist attack, and also a pandemic. Next slide, please. Long before the Super Bowl, actually, if you recall back when the unfortunate event occurred when the 35W bridge fell, we were able to utilize some of the UPA funding that came along to help establish telework resources that we could provide to employers at no charge. And so that was the impetus for us really gaining and growing telework resources that we could offer to employers. So we have wonderful sample telework policies that an employer can further customize. And we give guidance on teleworker selection. And so who's a good fit for teleworking, which is both subjective and objective. So we help with that, and we encourage employers to enter into an agreement with their teleworkers, and we provide implementation guidance, consulting on best practices, and we do training for managers on how to manage remote workers, and best practice training for teleworkers, and also ergonomic and home office recommendations. Next slide, please. And so when employers subsidize or offer commuting programs, they are 3 times more effective at mode shift, shifting people from driving alone into using an alternative versus employers who do not have commuter programs. And 81% of our Commuter Challenge participants reported that employer-sponsored transportation benefits would be a major influence on their decision to change their commuting behavior. We've since found, since the onset of COVID, we've been surveying commuters every 3 to 4 months to see how telework is changing over time, how many people are still teleworking, what are their employer plans to bring people back into the office. And we've learned that commuters plan to drive alone once they return to work for safety reasons. Some concerns about taking transit and the ability to social distance. And so people are planning to drive alone once they're returning to work. Next slide, please. So just a couple of high points out of our annual report. So in a typical single year, our staff will hold 130 on-site commuter fairs with large employers and multi-tenant office buildings. And over 1,000 companies along 494 are working with commuter services. And 4,800 commuters have opted in to receive regular commute-related updates from us. Next slide, please. And this is a snapshot of just 1 year. It's not cumulative over the number of years that we've been doing this outreach. So in 2018, you can see the number of new transit riders, new carpoolers, new bicycle commuters, new teleworkers pre-pandemic, and new van poolers in 2018. And in that year, those numbers are representative of a typical year of what we're able to achieve through working with employers. Just under 6,000 drive-alone commuters switched to using a sustainable mode 3 or more days per week after working with us. Next slide, please. Resulting in an estimated 56 million vehicle miles avoided. Next slide, please. And that represents the 56 million vehicle miles avoided is the equivalent of 23,000 metric tons of CO2 emissions saved. Next slide, please. And that's a big number. It's hard to kind of quantify what does that mean? What does that look like? And so to bring it down to a human scale, it takes over 1.16 million mature trees to reduce that same amount of CO2 emissions. Next slide, please. The return on investment is huge. The 56 million vehicle miles avoided divided by commuter services annual budget is less than a penny. Next slide, please. And we believe that we are not going to be able to build our way out of traffic congestion with a roads-only approach, and that we must look at other alternatives and all other alternatives. Next slide, please. And so the 494 Corridor Commission on behalf of commuter services is seeking $300,000 to assist employers and commuters with telework resources. And these resources we will share statewide. Next slide, please. And we will use that $300,000 to assist employers with best practice guidance on implementing telework as a long-term business strategy. So everyone was thrown into the new environment with the pandemic and needing to make it work. But we want employers to embrace telework on a long-term basis as well, especially for those whose jobs primarily use the telephone or computer. And so we give guidance on how to avoid telework pitfalls and best practice training for telemanagers. And a telemanager is someone who manages a teleworker. And best practice training for teleworkers and telework implementation guidance and ergonomic recommendations for the home office. Next slide, please. Additionally, we will begin offering a telework newsletter and Ask the Expert guidance that teleworkers and or managers or employers can utilize. And we also want to make sure that people know that these services are available. And like I said, we would make them available statewide. Next slide, please. And so, Mr. Chair, do we have time to take any questions now, or should we hold that over?
If someone has questions right now, we could take a couple, short ones, but I would like to get going with Katie's presentation soon. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, let's get started with Katie's. Thank you, Melissa. As you can see, commuter services and the 494 Corridor Commission really does a lot of work and at a very small amount of money to do all that work. And we have a very efficient and effective staff. And I'm going to put my Southwest Transit hat on just for a second here as being chair of Southwest Transit currently. I get to plug that, and I see Matt Fighton is online here as well from Southwest Transit. But think about as people start to return to work, and we want them not to just all go back to driving alone, but to riding our fantastic transit services. Southwest Transit has really done a lot to make it safe with updated filtering of the air, with on all of our buses, and we also have barriers that are between the driver and the passengers, and also between the rows on the bus, and also we've spaced out our riders so that everything remains much safer. So people should feel comfortable in riding our buses and not worry about being bunched in on a crowded commute. So enough on that. I'm sure Matt will probably have more comments later, but thank you all. And with that, we'll introduce Katie Sen, our Meserly and Kramer person that is representing us, and she's going to give a quick legislative walkthrough on our priorities. Take it away, Katie.
Thanks, Brad. Nice to be with all of you, and just thanks to all the legislators who've helped us in the last several years with some really big lifts and priorities, like getting the corridors of commerce funding for a lot of the improvements over 494. That was a huge deal. And I saw that Commissioner Anderson Kelleher is on the phone. So I'm going to briefly go through our platform just so you know what's in it. I'm not going to read it to you or go into a lot of details, but just want to kind of highlight the top pieces. So Kate is putting up page 1, and I think the staff at 494 Corridor Commission have sent this all to you either electronically or in the mail, and we're happy to get you copies if you don't have one. But the first page, Melissa really did a good job of walking through just who we are and what all the many things that her small and mighty team does. You want to go to page 2, Kate? So page 2 really talks a lot about some of those statistics that highlight the impact that they have. And in that blue box, it also describes our legislative ask for this year, $300,000 for telework. And really the legislature in most of the last budget years, the last 4 budget years, 494 Corridor Commission has received state funding. And that really started because the federal CMAQ funds had new restrictions that crunched the budget of the 494 Corridor Commission, which is also relatively small. And so the state legislature has seen the benefit statewide, because 494 is such a critical corridor going to the airport and the mall, that we've typically gotten some funding to help pay for all these different programs in budget years. And so this is something that's not new, but will be coming back again this year with really a focus on telework, which, as you can imagine, has just been a huge thing that commuter service has worked on since March. The other thing I would highlight on this page is just that the number of jobs that Melissa said. There's just a chart that shows the number of jobs along 494 Corridor Commission, which really drives why relatively small investment in this corridor has really a big impact statewide. Okay, you can go to page 3 now, Kate. Page 3, we highlight our support for Transportation Economic Development Program and Corridors of Commerce. You know, obviously the funding we got through Corridors of Commerce has been super impactful along our corridor, and it's still being planned, and there is going to be a funding gap. We don't know how much it is, so there's not an ask related to that this year, but we know that is likely coming, and they're adding min-pass lanes and just doing a lot of really exciting things along that stretch. And we're going to be hearing from MnDOT. They'll give you an update on where that project is at. I know some of you have probably been following it very closely yourselves anyway. But just to give some examples, you know, a lot of the 5 cities that are part of the 494 Corridor Commission that our legislators represent really benefit from these 2 programs, from Corridors of Commerce and TED, because there are so many jobs along the corridor. So East Bush Lake Road, I was just looking up, the MnDOT has a great list where you can see all the projects that have been funded. 394 Ridgedale Drive Interchange in Minnetonka, I-94 and 34th Avenue in Bloomington are all examples of TED projects that have been funded. And then Corridors of Commerce, obviously, the 494 to Airport project, as well as Highway 169 to 9 Mile Creek Bridge. So those are just a few projects that you may not realize were funded from these different pots of money. So we're rooting for a comprehensive transportation bill that would really help with some more of that congestion that happens along 494, but very appreciative for what has been done in the past. And then the bottom half of this really talks about the Airport to 169 project, and I'm just going to let MnDOT will do a great job kind of going through the status of that, so I'm going to skip over that. And then the last page, Kate, if you want to just scroll down to the last page of the legislative platform, there's a map, and we just highlight both projects we've worked on and projects that are in the queue. And you know, we've had a lot of success, very much thanks to our elected officials, both at the state and local level. You know, the Orange Line, the 494 35W interchange, Southwest LRT, the 494 169 interchange, the D line, which just got funded, which is so exciting. 77th Street underpass also just got funded in the latest bonding bill. So I feel like this group has really done a good job working together, and our delegation has really done a good job working together to push some of these big items over the finish line. But then this map kind of highlights other projects that we'll be looking forward to and hoping get funded in the future as well. So I think the last thing I just want to say is that, Brad, it's been so great working with you, and I'm going to miss having you as chair. I know we have Rebecca Shacks coming in, and she'll do an awesome job, but you've been a great leader in a lot of those projects I just mentioned. You were really key on helping too. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Katie, and we appreciate all of your great work to help keep everyone informed, and to work with all of our legislators and to work with us. It's been a joy and an honor. So thank you. Thank you for your remarks, Katie, and leading us through the legislative priorities. And now we'll move right over to our Margaret Anderson Kelleher, our MnDOT Commissioner, and we thank you so much for joining us this morning, Margaret, and it'd be wonderful to hear from you. So if you just unmute your microphone, we'd love to hear from you. You should be able to unmute it on your side. We'll give her 1 second to do that, but thank you all for being here, and it's been a joy and an honor to work with you all, and I just hope to continue to see you and to help out on these projects.
Mr. Chair, you've been a delight to work with. Thank you so much for your leadership and the guidance that you give our staff. We will definitely miss working with you.
Well, thank you. I've enjoyed working with all of you as well, and I know Rebecca is going to do a great job in taking over the reins, and we'll have a little kickoff with her later this month, and make sure that we turn it over. I'll hand the gavel over to Rebecca, and she'll do a great job. So. All right, Commissioner.
Well, good morning, everyone. Sorry, sometimes overnight when the computer runs the update, it does things. Zoom particularly is always updating. And this morning, all of a sudden I had all of you, and then you all disappeared on me. So I was trying to figure out, like, where did you all go? I found you again, so that was good. Well, good morning. Great to be here. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just want to say a shout out to Katie Sen. This is a little known fact. Katie and I actually met in graduate school at the Kennedy School. She's a Minneapolis native, but I had to go all the way out to Cambridge, Massachusetts to meet her. And so I think she's one of the brightest lights in policy, and you know her background of working for the Minnesota House for a number of years and then coming over to Messerly, a great firm. And so I just want to say hi to Katie and hi to all the legislators who are on the call today. We're going to break this into two parts for you. I'm going to make some high-level comments about both the 494 area as well as the MnDOT strategic vision and planning and where we're headed to. And then my colleague April Crockett is going to do the details on 494, and I can see April is there. I don't know if Amber is with us today. There's Amber. All right, so Amber and April will be taking over when I'm finished. So first of all, I want to tell all of you that growing up in southern Minnesota, when my family would come to the Twin Cities, I thought 494 was the Twin Cities. I honestly thought Southtown and Southdale, I mean, that was the center of the Twin Cities to me. So I am very familiar with the corridor. You know, when you're a kid from southern Minnesota, coming up 169 to 494 was a pretty regular experience. I'm glad to say that the corridor is in much better shape than it was back then. The connections between this system are much smoother. They work so much better. And that's all due to hats off to all of you with the I-494 Corridor Commission to really be able to help lead the way. And it also highlights the importance of community involvement. Both legislators city councils as well as mayors and active business folks being involved to be able to get big things done. You know, I got to hear part of the presentation about telework and what the request is from Michelle. And I have to say, you know, 2020, I keep reflecting on that at this time of year, last year, very few of us had any idea that we would spend our time more in our homes, away from family and friends, away from colleagues. And so all of these challenges and uncertainties are giving way to, in some cases, some new thinking and some innovative thinking. And I'll talk a little bit about that. Even we are embracing a number of things at MnDOT. And then also just, you know, we have to pause and say the loss of so many people, both in Minnesota and in the country and around the globe, has been a real challenge. The loneliness of this for some people has been really weighed on them. And so I just want to remind everyone that we each can take an action every day that helps someone, even if it's the phone call or the email. That loneliness is real for both, we have found, for some of our employees as well as community members. Our connections are not quite as strong in some cases, so we need to work on that. You know, I want to share with you a little bit about where MnDOT has been and where our priorities are and how we have been thinking about them. So our priorities really are focused, like Governor Walz and Lieutenant Governor Flanagan, on the One Minnesota goals. And specifically within MnDOT, that means sustainability, climate resilience, equity, innovation, and new technologies that are all being incorporated every day into MnDOT's plans and our work. They're also essential to building the best multimodal transportation system in Minnesota now and into the future. And, you know, I want to specifically stress that on 494 because there are so many things that we have yet to do here that will really help all travelers, no matter the mode. And so I think that is something we must look at. You know, specifically at MnDOT, as one of the state's largest agencies, we've been a little over 5,000 people. A big chunk of our workforce, almost half at one point, was working from home. But we have a workforce that has to report in as well. And so this has been a challenging time. Many, and now the majority of our employees are reporting to their workstation, their office, their lab every day because the job can't be done from home. So we are well aware of the challenges that employers are facing out there. And we ourselves have had to implement a lot of new safety protocols, both inside buildings as well as in vehicles, and then beyond to our entire agency. One of the big things that people are wondering about right now is winter contingency plans. So I just want to hit on that. I know it's been a very dry period of time. And in some ways, you know, we're all grateful for that ability for us to get out there and walk, run, or bike more easily right now without the snow. But snow will come, I promise. And we have really been working since the spring on a contingency on snow and ice that I think is spectacularly detailed. And that means that we have to account for, if we have one truck station that is severely impacted by COVID, we have to have a plan for how we're going to deliver that service. And it's become even more important when you look at vaccine distribution and last mile distribution. And so we have in place a rolling hierarchy of how we will fill those plows, including many people who work in district offices, some in the central office who still hold CDLs. I am not one of them. You can all be thankful for that. I will not be driving the plow, but we will call on our own folks first, but then we have a cascading tier of other folks. We're even talking, and I see that folks from Richfield are on, and Bloomington. We've been talking to some local units of government about what would need to happen if a truck station were severely impacted. Kind of almost a mutual aid system. We also have some other partners in the state government who can help. The DNR actually has a number of people who hold CDLs. So we really have I feel good about this plan. We haven't had to test it yet, but I share it with you because it's often on people's minds when we do get a few flakes like we did this past weekend and people start to have to adjust to winter driving again. So I want to look forward into the legislative session. I see many of our legislative partners are here. They have been great supporters of the 494 area and the surrounding area of 494, as well as transportation in general. The chairman is on, Chair Hornstein is here with us. Representative Elkins has been doing a lot of work with us on connected and automated vehicles, electrification. So I'm excited to see, and I see you, Senator, and I think Representative Acomb is on as well. There she is. Did I miss anyone? I just don't want to. Okay. So looking forward, I think it's fair to say that our work is not done on the 494 corridor. And as we look into the new legislative session, 494 is just one example of both areas, projects, and regions around the state where we actually do need further investment. And so the budget challenges at MnDOT we had a short-term challenge during COVID for a while. We largely have gone through that. It would be great if at some point we are whole from our COVID expenses and we are down still a little bit. And so we've been in conversation with our federal partners about this issue. We've been in conversation with our state partners. But generally speaking, our next year, our past year and our next year have been pretty solid. We've not had to cancel one single transportation infrastructure project in the state because of budget issues. And so that's really good. Some of my other colleagues in states around the country, the other CEOs of DOTs, have had to cancel entire lettings because of their financial condition. So that's hats off to past MnDOT leaders, the finance office. We have a really solid plan. But to be able to really deliver this vision for 494 that improves the freeway and for both the motorist, but also for all travelers, bicyclists, people who are walking, bus riders, carpoolers, that is going to take more than we have today. And we know how important 494 is as a critical access point for destinations and businesses. I have to tell you, I took a friend to an appointment off of 100, and then we went over quickly to get something from the Southtown area. And that friend lives in Minneapolis and doesn't get to 494 very often, and was like, oh my God, there's so much stuff out here. We should just come out here and just go from place to place and shop. And I'm like, yes, when it's safer, we can do that. It's, I know it to be a great entertainment area. I know it to be a great recreation area, but to fulfill this vision, our long-term funding is not as solid. And so I'm going to talk about that a little more in detail in a second as we talk about our accomplishments. And our accomplishments, of course, include the work that the city of Bloomington did for getting the money for the interchange. We need to continue to work on this. I think both April and Amber will be talking about that. We also know that the successes of getting the $6 million for the city of Richfield for the 77th Street underpass is important for bus rapid transit. Yay! Yes, so important to have gotten done. And that is, those are some of the things that we are very excited about. But I'd be remiss if I didn't tell you that the long-term future for our overall transportation system, both the motoring public as well as transit riders, is not bright right now. And obviously I don't lead the Met Council, but my good friend Charlie Zelli does. And he and I talk a lot about the challenges that we each face. The transit faces a more immediate set of pressures, particularly because of COVID-19 and what's happening. There were budget pressures there before. They become greater because of less ridership. For MnDOT, it's really out into the next 2, 4, 6 years that we see the pressure become very great on the system. Many people ask about, well, why don't you just fix what you have? And I say, that's what we're doing. I mean, that is our priority, along with these other priorities that I mentioned about climate resilience and working on reducing greenhouse gases, as well as equity, both in contracting and at the agency. We are actually on the maintenance and operations side of MnDOT in a preservation mode. And when I say that, that means that we look at things like bridge and pavement conditions out into the future. If we do nothing, if our legislative partners cannot find agreement on a future funding package with the governor, what does it mean? It means that in 10 years, for the first time in our state, we will have road and bridge conditions that will be subpar to our measurements and standards, to the tune of anywhere from 7% in the red to 10% in the red. That means that your traveling will be bumpier, we will have more potholes, we will have less critical issues we can address, like still the number of deficient bridges in the state. And then we also have some really big projects out there yet. Projects like along 494, projects like the Highway 10 corridor and the Highway 94 corridor, really getting those roads up to standards of modern travel for the traveling public. And then Duluth. I mean, the two projects up there cost over $1 billion. The Twin Ports interchange, which really helps the port of Duluth as well as the traveling public. You know, if you've driven it, it is both sometimes confusing, and it also has some real safety issues to it. And then we have the Blatnick Bridge, which is both a fracture critical and one of our remaining gusset bridges. And so we need to repair that and get it replaced. Those things all cost far more than we have available to us today. And so I ask for your partnership. We've done a lot of good work on 494. We have more work to do, but we also have more work to do around the entire system and state. And if we want to see the transportation system of the future, which includes people being able to take more transit, to reduce greenhouse gases, to have more electrification and modern amenities on the system, we need to have more funding to do that. So I am going to turn this over to Amber Blanchard and April Crockett, who are going to give you some details on the projects. I'll stick around, and if we have some time for questions, I'm happy to answer them. Thanks so much.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having us. We have a PowerPoint. Is that getting pulled up?
I don't see it yet. There it comes, I think.
There it is. Perfect. So you can go to the next slide. So I'm going to share with you today a couple different things. I'm going to share with you, I'm going to really zoom into the 494 corridor area and talk a little bit about the needs in the area. This graphic really represents the next 10 years out, and from years now until the next 4 years, we have funded investments. And then beyond that, you can see in years 25 through 30, they're really planned projects. They're projects that we know we have needs in the corridor. These are largely preservation projects. So I just wanted to give you an idea of when money comes into the system, how we have to, you know, strategically develop the program based upon our funding that we have available, the asset conditions, the timing of other corridor improvements. We certainly try to avoid having two parallel corridors under construction at the same time, as well as our local projects that are in the hopper. And so obviously, as we think about this program, it's very complicated and it's continually changing. So you can just see around this 494 area, we've got a lot of needs out there. And as the commissioner had mentioned, you know, having a sustainable transportation package will help us get to those improvements so we don't have poor conditions for our roadways. Next slide. So I just wanted to give you a quick update. So as we move to the current construction, I wanted to highlight 3 projects that you're all probably well aware of. The first one I want to talk through is the 35W at 94 downtown to crosstown project. We are entering into our 5th year of construction in 2021. So we're super excited about that. Some of the work that was completed this year, we have all 3 lanes open in each direction. We've completed all of the local bridges. The 40th Street pedestrian bridge and bike bridge has been completed. We have all the exits into downtown open, and the Lake Street transit station is under construction and on schedule. So what we can expect for this project in 2021 is to work on the Lake Street. We're going to work on the transit station and get that completed. And then you might have noticed when you're traveling northbound on the east side of 35W, we're putting in a stormwater improvement, a storage area, and that will also be completed next year. So we're looking forward to having this significant regional investment be completed next year. Another project I wanted to highlight was the Highway 5 project going to the airport. We were able to reconstruct the 35W bridge spanning over the Mississippi River. Oops, I'm sorry. That was actually for the 35W Minnesota River Bridge, which we're also entering into our final year of completion. So as I mentioned, we've reconstructed the 35W bridge over the river. We've also reconstructed the 35W bridge over 106, which is just north of the river. We've replaced the pavement from Cliff Road all the way up to 106. We've constructed a northbound auxiliary or truck lane between Cliff Road and 106. And we've constructed a trail between Black Dog Road and Lindell Avenue. So significant amount of work has been done in 2020, and that's largely attributed to the fact that our volumes have been significantly decreased this year in 2020. So what to look for in 2021 is we're going to be putting in the top layer of the pavement, and we will be putting in the deck planing to smooth out the surface. So again, those 2 projects have 1 more year of construction and then they'll be done. The Highway 5 project near the airport, we were able to repair the pavement and 7 bridges along that corridor. You know, I guess there's maybe a silver lining with the COVID in that the volumes on this road going into the airport were significantly lower than what we typically experience. And so we were actually able to get that work done with little impact to the traveling public because the volumes were so low. So again, significant preservation work that we were able to get completed this year. So lots of good progress on these significant regional projects. We have more to come next year. We appreciate the patience and support of these efforts surrounding the 494 corridor. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Amber to share some details on the 494 Airport to 169 project.
Thanks, April. Good morning, everyone. Happy to be here. So just like April said, I'm going to talk through a couple of items on the 494 corridor study that we're doing right now. We've been working on this study since 2018, and we've made a lot of progress this year in 2020, even though we've all been separated by computers and COVID. So have been working very hard and having to kind of do things a little bit differently this year and how we communicate. So a couple of items I want to point out. If you recall correctly, we've come to the commission several times and have talked through just about every month or so the corridor and kind of where we're at. And if you recall, our corridor vision is what you see on your screen right now. And that vision is along Main Line, putting in MinPass in both directions from 169 to the airport. Also doing the turbine interchange reconstruction at 35W and 494. And then looking at some access changes at Nicollet, Portland, and 12th, and really kind of opening up the corridor there so that we can get better better weaves, better lower crashes, lower congestion in that area because of the access changes that we're going to do. And so that is a really important part of what we're doing here on 494 as well. We've been working really hard on the vision layout to develop what the geometrics are going to look like so that we can further refine our costs along the entire corridor. And that really will lead into our implementation plan development, which several of you are familiar with. And we did report to on our policy advisory committee meeting last week, which some of you attended as well. And, you know, some of the important things to keep in mind is we have to do an implementation plan because we really don't have enough funding to do the entire corridor in the vision that we would like to do. So as the commissioner mentioned before, we need to really work together to make sure that we can get 494 committed to and funded into the future and make sure that that vision becomes reality going forward in the future. Next slide, please. So our timeline that we have, and sometimes words don't do justice to the amount of work that goes into what is behind all these words, but I will say that with everything going on this year, we've been extremely busy to get ready for the implementation plan decision, which we are hoping to come to that decision the end of February in 2021. And then once that happens, we have our first project, our first phase of that vision identified. Then we'll be able to finish our environmental documentation, get our layout done for that first phase, and really get our bid documentation ready to go. We are anticipating a design build letting for our first project here, and that means we have to get the contractor on board before we do final design. So all of that piece will happen in 2022. And then because we've stepped back and really concentrated on getting a good implementation plan that everybody can support, we will likely have to push back construction to start instead of 22 like we wanted. It'll likely begin in 2023. So if you go to the next slide, we still have a great amount of information out there on the web. Our project website and our online open house are still up and running, and feel free to go to those websites if you would like more information. But that's about all we have for today. So I just wanted to say thank you for having us, and Chair Aho, it's been a pleasure working with you over the last year and a half or so. So good luck in your future endeavors.
Well, thank you, Amber. We appreciate all of our MnDOT partners, and it's been a good relationship, and you guys have done great work. And and we just so appreciate everything that you're doing to promote and and make transportation in Minnesota better. I know it's a tough challenge when we have limited amount of funds, but you guys are really doing a good job to use those funds efficiently. So thank you, Amber. Thank you, April, and thank you, Commissioner Margaret Anderson Kelleher. We appreciate you being on this morning. Is there anyone that would have any questions for our MnDOT team while they're here and on? I don't have a way to view the virtual hand raising, but one of our staff can call on people as they have questions if anyone's raising their virtual hand. And if you're not getting any response from your virtual hand, raise your real hand, and we'll try to catch you raising that, and we'll call on you. All right. Well, thank you, MnDOT. We'll keep moving on. So what I'd like to do now is just really to go around the Zoom room and have some discussion with our legislators. We so appreciate our legislators in being here today and continuing to work with us and to represent our constituents in this area, because it is such a critical area. And it's so important, as you saw, with all of the jobs, all of the population in this area, and just the critical need for transportation, and just some of the the funding sources like TED and corridors of commerce. We really want to encourage everyone to continue to support those. Does anyone who would like to go first here? How about in my screen? I see Representative Elkins is up in the top of my line, so I'll call on Steve to give us some remarks and any questions.
I think we should start with Chair Hornstein while we've got him.
Okay, yeah, that's even a better idea. Thank you, Steve. I appreciate that.
I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah. All right. Frank, Representative Hornstein, could you enlighten us with some comments and topics? Unmute your mic if you would on your side, please.
Got it.
There you go.
Sorry about that. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you, Councilmember Aho, for all of your service over the years. I have really enjoyed working with you, both in your capacity on the 494 Commission, but also Southwest Transit, and you've been a real stalwart on all sorts of transportation issues, and you've been at the Capitol quite a bit, and I'll miss you, but I really want to thank you and express my appreciation. We have fantastic legislators, of course, from the corridor, and really looking forward to working with Representative Elkins. He's already got a number of really important bills that he's authoring, but I want to add one, maybe Representative Elkins, that we haven't talked about yet, but I know that you'll agree that we really want to make this $300,000 a high priority. I was disappointed we couldn't get that across the finish line in 2019, and I talked with Representative Elkins at that time that this is going to be among our highest general fund requests this year. And
Okay, Katie and I already have the bill drafted.
Great. Okay. So I know I hadn't talked with you officially about that, Representative Elkins, but I didn't think that you would shy away from being the author of that bill. So first and foremost, that's number one. I think that, and I think you've really made the case today, and then I will like you to make the case again in front of the Transportation Committee for why this Corridor Commission is so important, and others like it, but particularly 494, because we are going to do a big, when Commissioner Anderson Kelleher talked about some of the issues around climate and equity. I am part of what's called the Sustainable Transportation Advisory Committee at MnDOT, and reducing vehicle miles traveled is one of the key recommendations that will be coming out of that. It's called the STACK. And I just thought your presentation was so compelling, both on that and the reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. The fact that you have so many quantitative measures that you can talk about, the success that you've had, the bang for the buck that you are able to document and show. So I think there's a very, very strong case. And then the last thing I'll say is that I completely agree with our MnDOT commissioner that this once again has to be a big push for a comprehensive transportation bill. You have, 494 is multimodal in every regard, whether it's biking, walking, transit, roads, the Corridors of Commerce program we worked so hard on in 2013, 2014 together, that you can show that you have benefited from that. So we'll be putting together a bill over the next couple of months. I envision a series of informational hearings to sort of lay the groundwork for the bill, but it will be comprehensive. It will be statewide. It will be multimodal. We'll be looking at raising new revenue so that we can avoid the kind of crisis that Commissioner Anderson Kelleher was talking about in 10 years, but in many ways we're facing now with the condition of our roads. Transit and telecommuting are going to be very important. Again, 494, you all were talking about telecommuting before it was fashionable. And, we worked together on the urban partnership agreement that had a big telecommuting piece to it. That was 10 years ago. Adil Lari over at the U of M and the Humphrey School was, kind of a lone voice, but now I think his vision and what you have all talked about is part of our reality. And I'm very interested in arterial bus rapid transit in particular. We have a vision. We've had Katie had mentioned the D line. We now have 4 lines that are funded. And we really need to get another 16 to 20. And that's in the Metropolitan Council plan. And many of them are on, or not many, but several of them are on or near the 494 corridor. So I think a big part of our transit vision in the bill, of course, will be supporting the workhorse of the system, which is the local bus system, but really building out that arterial bus rapid transit. So I'll just say that I'm extremely excited to work with you. I think that certainly that specific bill you talked about is a high priority, but I think you are able to articulate other things that are really statewide in nature, not only in the metro area, but the work that you have accomplished in VMT reduction and putting out a vision around climate is going to be very, very important moving forward. So I'm excited for our work and look forward to working with, Representative Elkins on this. Representative Acom has been the chair of our Climate Action Caucus and has done an incredible job. And, what I appreciate so much about Representative Acom's work and vision is that, she has really been a champion in terms of including transportation and in that vision. Transportation now accounts for 30% of greenhouse gas emissions total. That's the same as electric utilities. And so we have got to really address the transportation aspects of climate change. And, Senator Sodzinski has been such a great stalwart supporter of transportation and transit too in the Senate, and we're going to need a lot of help in the Senate. So I'm really happy to be working with all of my colleagues and with all of you, and happy to take questions, I guess, when everyone else has made their presentations. Or now, however you want to handle it, council member.
Well, thank you, Chair Hornstein, and we're so appreciative of all of your support in the past and in the future. We know that you've done a great job in helping us on all of our priorities, and we just appreciate that you are still congratulations on remaining chair of transportation. That's fabulous. So thank you for all your work. If anyone has any questions for Chair Hornstein, we can do those now. If someone wants to either just jump in or raise your virtual hand or your real hand. I see Glenn. Let's see. No, Glenn doesn't have his hand up. Okay. Well, I'll move on to Representative Elkins. Steve has done a great job in transportation and was part of our 494 Corridor Commission for quite some time and chaired it as well. And so he's very familiar with us, and I know he's been working hard on many different transportation priority projects, both in our area and across the state. So Representative Elkins.
Thanks, Brad. Yeah, I have been, affiliated with this organization for a very long time, going back to when I was on the city council in Bloomington. Very proud of that very productive association. So you guys do great work. And Brad, you personally have done an amazing job in your long tenure as the chair there as well. So don't be a stranger.
I won't.
I'm pretty sure I sent you a LinkedIn invitation.
I will respond.
Okay. We've talked a little bit about the Telework grant. The bill has literally already been drafted. So Katie Sen is my favorite lobbyist of all of them in the Capitol. I just love working with her, and she does an amazing job.
I second that.
Yeah. In addition to that, I am, as Commissioner said, actively involved in MnDOT's efforts around connected and automated vehicles and vehicle electrification. One of my other bills that has already been drafted that would, be a contribution to, in the long term, to the funding issues that we face. It would establish the first mileage-based road user charge on electric vehicles modeled after programs that are already in effect in Utah and in Oregon, so that as EV adoption grows, the mileage-based fees would gradually supplant the corresponding drop in gas tax revenues. So that bill has also already been drafted, working actively with the Drive Electric Minnesota Coalition on bills related to that, and Representative Acom and Representative Long, who sits right next to me in the state office building, Representative Stevenson, who will be sitting right next to me in the state office building, will all be working very hard on to promote vehicle electrification over the next couple of years. And then, along with that, the other, big topics that I've taken on is consumer data privacy and locational data privacy. In particular, I've got one big bill I'm collaborating with a Washington State Senator named Reuben Carlisle, who's kind of taken the lead nationally and coming up with a model consumer data privacy laws that are worthy of being adopted in the various states until Congress does its job and takes up the issue nationally. And I'm particularly focused on the locational data privacy, because we've got some great resources for me to work with on transportation data privacy at MnDOT, and people who are associated with the Blue Ribbon Council on Connected and Automated Vehicles and the Shared Mobility Collaborative. Both of those organizations have data committees that I can rely on for expertise in building out transportation data privacy as a concern. So this is a budget year. The big thing, as both the commissioner and the chair said, is we need to make sure that we come out of this budget session with adequate funding for both roads and transit. And it's going to be a real slog, but we can't go home without solving the problem this year. We've kicked the can down the road way too long.
Well, thank you, Steve, and thank you for all of your support and all of your work on transportation. And I think you're really well positioned to lead the state in these things. And it sounds like collaborating with the Washington state, we're actually as a state are leading the nation. So it's exciting to see how that leadership is taking action and how it will improve transportation, not only here, but also across the United States. So thank you for all of that work. All right, next on my screen is Senator Steve Swedzinski. Swad, do you want to jump in here, unmute your mic, please, and jump in?
Thanks. Everywhere I've been going lately, everybody's singing Brad's praises like he had passed on. So it's nice to see somebody getting recognized for all their public service over the years while he's still alive. So I just wanted to say that about Brad. And anyways, you know, I'm not on the transportation committee, but I have a huge interest in this issue. And I think what's so fascinating for me as a citizen and a legislator is all the people in on this call right now with all their forward thinking. And I think there's this little microcosm here in Eden Prairie in the southwest quadrant, so to speak, of 494, where we're building, and Brad might know the actual number, but I think we're building 3 housing projects, about 250 per project. So that's going to be 750 people within walking distance of the Southwest station. And so there's going to be this culmination of busing, light rail, and commuters all converging upon this place on the 494 Beltway that if we get it right, it could be the model for the nation as we move into the 21st century. And I'm just grateful for all of you that are so forward thinking that we work together to get this project right, and other communities can look at it and come visit us and say this is a place where all the government agencies and the private sector came together and worked together and gave the world a great place to live, work, and play and commute.
Well, thank you, Steve. And you mentioned Southwest LRT and Southwest Transit coexisting here in Eden Prairie at Southwest Station and Village there. And, you know, I think it's important to remember that Southwest Transit is really going to partner with Southwest LRT to make sure that it's successful. And the way we can do that is by providing that first and last mile transportation. So, for example, when someone takes Southwest LRT out to Eden Prairie and they stop in the Golden Triangle, and they have to get to their job, and their job is a half a mile away or 3/4 of a mile away or a mile away, you know, now till about June, they're probably not going to want to walk that. They're not going to want to hoof it. And so us being involved with Southwest Transit and partnering with MnDOT to one of the exciting things we're looking at is the autonomous vehicles in that area. And I think that can really be a strong place to pilot that technology and use that to get people to their jobs and back and forth. And so we're excited to work with them. And that's one of the innovative ways that Southwest Transit is really working with the transportation community and our communities at large. So thank you, State Senator Swedzinski. Appreciate all of your efforts. Next on my Zoom screen, I see that we have Representative Acomb. And Representative Acomb, would you like to make some comments, please?
Well, good morning. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and congratulations to Chair Aho on a great public service career. Certainly a shame to see you go. Appreciate all the impact that you've had on both the City of Eden Prairie and the region and the Legislative Commission through 494. Great to be here this morning. I had a great meeting last week with Katie Sen and Melissa about some of the work that you're doing, and heard a lot about the bill that Representative Elkins is carrying. Very supportive of that. As Representative Hornstein said, I'm chair of the House Climate Action Caucus, and so the impacts from transportation on our climate change are huge, and so really appreciate the efforts that all of you are putting on solutions to that. And it certainly is going to take all of us working together to solve this really big problem, and I think this is a great way to do that, and the work that you're doing is really important and should be scaled up and brought around to other communities through the region and the state. So thank you for that. Great to be here and appreciate working with y'all.
Well, thank you. We appreciate you being here and working with us. And it takes a lot of support to get these projects through. I mean, you look at the size and the scope of 494-35W interchange alone, but then combining that with with the improvements on 494 main line, from the airport to Highway 169, that is going to impact transportation for many, many years to come, and I would say decades. And so but they're not inexpensive. It takes a lot of money and it takes a lot of coordination. And I know MnDOT has invested heavily in making that successful, and it's great to have them as a good partner. I don't know if Commissioner Debbie Gottel is still available. I see her video is muted, but there she is. Okay, excellent. I would call on you next, Debbie, to make your remarks.
Well, most of mine is I wanted to say about what the partnership has been with the 494 corridor and all the cities that have been around it and surrounding it. I think one of the biggest accomplishments is this 35W 494 interchange. And I have to say thank you to MnDOT, who was willing to step back and talk about equity and racial issues around that corridor and how we could address that in the project. I think that took a lot of courage, and I think we're all trying to look at things through a different lens these days. And so I think many praises, and you know, for the dollars that you want to do the commuter work and everything like this, I think this is timely because we're looking at that as racial disparities as well. If we can find more dollars to open up folks to having internet access in wherever they live, having adequate computer resources so that they could do their job. Their jobs may change significantly, and so might their incomes. We know that transportation is a huge cost. So in the big broad picture of things, I just want to say thank you to all the work here. I think this is a big issue. I'm looking forward to the D line. The county is committed to its portion of that. We're committed to our portions to the Southwest Light Rail. I sit on the change board to look at all the change orders on that. I know we've had to do a big job down there in Eden Prairie on the culvert work that happened. Nobody would expect that culverts cost so much to fix, but some of them have been there for 100 years and needed a lot of work. So we continue to look at those kinds of things. We will continue to be a huge supporter and contributor to transportation and transportation alternatives. So I just want to thank the partners because we do this together. And the county staff has been really great to be involved. And Katie, you've helped us a lot. I mean, we can call you anytime, and when we need some advice about where we should be taking things to help our great partners here today on 494. I also want to say that I sit on the 35W Solutions as well as the TAB and the TAB Executive Board. And I just want to say that 494 is the envy of the 35W Solutions. And I've heard that around the table. If there's anything you guys do, you do this right. And I want to say thank you to the staff, but also to Chair Brad Aho, who's been a great leader in this. I remember sitting around that table as a mayor when I used to come down to the in-person meetings too. So I look forward to that happening again. And Brad, you don't have to be a stranger. Once in a while, a cup of coffee and talking to us afterwards would be great. We would miss you otherwise. So I just want to say thank you to all our representatives here today, and Margaret Anderson Kelleher, whose door is always open when we need to talk to her about very specific issues. Because of her, the underpass is happening. She was a huge supporter in that. So, and Richfield has taken a lead in that. So thank you to Richfield, because that will complete part of that whole interchange. So I just can't say enough. I think this is a great, great organization. I think you guys have a really good vision. The biggest thing I'm looking forward to is what Margaret and also Senator Hornstein, thank you for your leadership at the Senate. I really appreciate you. We know we have to find a solution and a compromise somehow to fund our roads across the state. There have been several times as I sat on the Regional Council of Mayors or as a county commissioner, we have supported something and it hasn't come through. I'm hopeful this year that we will come to some kind of understanding of how to move something forward that funds our roads past the capacity of just maintaining them, and because we're falling behind in that. We need to grow, and we won't grow as a metro area and economically if we don't address this issue. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Brad, Chair Aho, for giving me a moment to speak.
Thank you, Commissioner. We appreciate all of your help and work with us, and those comments are really appropriate. I think it's really so important that we as a state and a region have sustainable funding for our transportation. If we want to be successful, like you said, if we want to be successful as a region, as a state, in this world, we have to have good transportation. That is so key. And I think all of our all of our business leaders, our chambers, all of those people understand this and they're really on board with it. And I think it's just a matter of engaging them and telling them why we need to do this. And I think they're on board. They want they know it costs money, and they're willing to help with it. And we just need to make sure that we're, using those public-private partnerships and engaging with people, letting them know why we're asking for money, why we need that money, and how it's going to be spent. I think once people know that, you need money and how you're going to spend it, they're willing to sign up for those programs. And I think that's so important. And it's always a challenge to find the funding, but we just have to do it if we're going to be successful. So thank you to everyone that was on board. Frank, I know you have a question. Would you chime in, please?
Yeah, well, thank you, Chair Aho. And, I raised my hand and then you made the exact point that I wanted to make. I mean, we are totally tracking here. But really, I wanted to underscore the importance of what you just said about the business community. Many of you have some connections with the Twin West Chamber and the State Chamber and other, small business organizations. We really need to build the same coalition, build back up, really. The same coalition that accounted for our biggest transportation success, at least since I've been in the legislature, and that was our 2008 transportation bill. And we accomplished that by having a coalition of business and labor, cities, counties, ag interests, urban, suburban, rural. It was really one of the most expansive coalitions I've seen in my public life. But we had to have everybody at the table and everybody included, but everybody working hard. In fact, it really was, many of you know this, but if you weren't around 12 years ago, it wasn't really until the state chamber came on board in March, I think, of 2008. They wrote a letter to the, and I had been talking with them really since the bridge had collapsed in 2007, trying to figure out what is the compromise, how can we move forward together. I think we would have had the votes, but I don't know. But as soon as they came forward, we were able to make this a bipartisan issue and get that bill over the top. And so I know that with them, we can accomplish this. Without them, it's going to be a bit more of a challenge. So I'm so glad, Chair Aho, that you mentioned that. And I would underscore that anyone that has those connections, please meet with them, please talk with them, because that's going to be very critical heading into this year. And in fact, I'm talking to the State Chamber's Transportation Committee tomorrow, and hopefully I'll get a sense of where they're at.
Well, thank you. I think that is so appropriate. And I just, I know we can do it. And people in Minnesota are hardworking. They're willing to invest in our infrastructure. And I know that we can get it done as long as we get the messaging right and we get the communications out and we get people engaged. And I know we can make Minnesota transportation much better and keep us as a competitive region. So thank you so much for all of your efforts and for attending today. We appreciate everything you do for us, and it's been great to get together. Hopefully sometime in the future we can get together, really get together instead of just virtually get together, and that will be fun to do again, to see everyone's smiling faces in person and be able to shake hands again and do all that fun stuff. So now that we've got a vaccine out and another one or two coming, hopefully we'll get on the other side of this pandemic soon and get back to life as much as normal as can be expected. So I want to just thank all of our commission staff. They do a great job for us and helping us with transportation. And thank you to all of our commissioners. And we look forward to having council member Rebecca Shack be our next chair, and I know she's going to do a great job. So thank you all, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks for attending.